Hi, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us for what's sure to be a scintillating discussion with my guest here that we'll get into in just a moment. Of course, I'm Seth. I'm your host with the most. I have been working in Pakistan for about 12 years, come from a hardcore marketing and sales background, associated with the venture ecosystem for about 4 years now, where I currently work with Orbit Startups, which is a global early stage VC fund. And we have 230 active investments worldwide and 20 in Pakistan alone. But without further ado, I want Sumaya to introduce herself. She is, of course, the founding partner at Rasmal Ventures. But Sumaya, we'd love to hear in your own words what your entire professional journey has looked like in like under a minute or two, just a brief intro.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much, Saif, and the whole team for having me today. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So, Sumaya bin Bayadrij, I'm a venture capitalist. I was active in investment in the Silicon Valley for the last 12 years. That was my training ground. Added to that, I was also wearing the startup hat, the founder hat. So I was part of a founding team for 3 years also. Because when you do a lot of investments and you just expect things to go in a certain way, I was part of Plug and Play Ventures, of Smart Capital, Founder Institute, and a couple of others. You expect things to go in a certain way when you study them, when you see them, etc. And then suddenly things just don't follow the path. And this is why at a certain point in my career, I said, you know what, I'm going to take a break. I love investment, but I'm going to take a break and I'm going to join a startup. I want to be part of the founding team of a startup and spend 3 years with them as a chief operations officer of Vimli. It's a B2B SaaS in the US. And
Nice.
after that experience, I came back to investments completely different. Looking at the
For sure.
startup completely different, assessing founders and solutions completely differently. So
Yeah.
my path in a nutshell is investments fully. I love it. I love challenging entrepreneurs, learning from them, assessing the businesses and the adrenaline of the investment. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I had a certain path also in a startup myself.
Awesome. I mean, there's no doubt that you would definitely make a better venture capitalist with that operator experience. So tell us about the fund. And,
Yeah.
and let's start from the bottom, right? Like, so how did this start? What's the mandate look like? What kind of investments are you looking for? You mentioned that you are open to Pakistan, so that's great for our audience, which I believe most will be either from Pakistan itself or from the Pakistani community worldwide. So please.
Sure. So I'm part of, I'm fourth of the team. So we're four partners in the team, Alex, Angus, and Sheikha, Dr. Sheikha and myself. And we actually looked at the map, looked at everything happening in the region that is vibrating in the Middle East, but no homegrown venture capital fund was out of Doha.
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity. When there is a gap, when there is scarcity, there is an opportunity. And so my partners, two of them relocated 4 years ago to Qatar. Part of that was advising some entities of investments in Qatar. And I
Mhm.
relocated 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, we decided and we saw the opportunity. We assessed the ecosystem and we said, there is a lot to do here. There is a lot to do by being the first homeborn Qatari venture capital fund, focusing on the MENA region. So we're not focusing only on Qatar, we're focusing on the whole MENA region. So we said, okay, we're going to make it happen. We built a team, a complementary team. We're a new fund, but very important for the audience to know is that we're not a first-time team. My
Yeah.
partners, two of them, they were active as partners for 20 years in the region, 10 years in the region. They were the first investors in Seed, in Kareem. They returned one of the most performing funds in the GCC. They were in Iris Capital before. I was in the US. So we're super complementary team, super experienced, but launching a new fund out of Qatar. So let
Mhm.
me tell you more about the focus of the fund. So when you look at the region, you see a gap when it comes to Series A in the MENA region. So we
That's right.
decided to come in and plug in and bring that value. And it's our
Mhm.
expertise anyways to come in that stage where there is market fit and the challenge is more to grow the business. And this is where our expertise here and where we want to come in. So we're targeting $100 million fund. 30 million were secured. We have a prestigious institutional investor, but we also have local Qatari and international investors in our first closing. We decided to make it quick and fast to show the quality of investors that we have behind us to start doing investments. And in parallel, we continue the fundraising. That's the drill of any VC fund launching. So we're now up and running. We're super excited. We focus on tech. technology. We
Mhm.
don't look at anything else other than technology. And in technology, we look at all sectors. You know, it is hard to put yourself in a box in the Middle East because it's still an emerging market. So we
Yeah.
decided to just remain agnostic, opportunistic, which means that we just invest in the founders that we believe in the most and that we see ourselves bringing value to. So this is the focus across all sectors. Now, that being said, we also see some sectors that are very important today in the MENA region. Some of them we wanna spend that extra effort to find more deal flow in those sectors, and that's including energy tech, climate tech. It's a global pain, and we want to see more and more techie innovation in that sense. Supply chain logistics is a very big market, and we should be able to see some gems out there. It's a boring sector, but it's a very big market and an interesting
It's a
one.
critical one. Yeah.
A critical one. Fintech, B2B, SaaS in the region, you so many things more to do, and we cannot ignore. But I want you guys to keep in mind that we're agnostic. Those are ones that we just like to see, but we remain agnostic. Now then, when I say Series A, that doesn't mean that we don't come in sometimes with a ticket in pre-Series A to have a foot on the door and join early on. And we also do some Series B, but the sweet spot is Series A. So we would typically join with a ticket of $3 to $5 million, and based on that, I mean, that's the entry ticket in general. We can start lower, but that's the average. Let's put it this way. We're very, very comfortable leading rounds. By leading rounds, I mean leading rounds literally, because I know it's a challenge in our region, and we have a lot of founders that come to us many times and say, listen, like 90% of my round is secure. Just come with a small ticket and just put the terms. So the good thing is that we're very experienced. We did this many times before within the team. So that's, I think, a value that will be complementing. Let's put it this way, what's happening in the market. So I think the last thing I should maybe explain in the whole strategy that I didn't cover yet is the geography.
Yes.
I said, but I want to also clarify to the audience that Turkey and Pakistan are the two markets that we're looking at very closely, that we're trying to build strong partnerships with allies, on site, and that we're very interested in. So that's very important to say. So 80% of the fund will focus on MENA, including Turkey and Pakistan, but 20% we're also keeping it opportunistic international investments. Why is that? We're not gonna do the mistake of just going and just investing in the US because it's cool and interesting. We have natural deal flow literally that comes our way from Europe and from the US mainly, and that natural deal flow we wanna leverage it, right? And there are some of them that are naturally expanding to the region because their business makes sense for the business to expand to the region, and this is when we want to be joining their adventure and being also smart money for them to onboard the region. As I said before, we are based in Qatar. We are interested, of course, in capturing the best in Qatar, but we're not Qatari focused in any sense. We're MENA focused. So we can open doors in Qatar, but because we were working for the last 10 years with my team in the region, we can open also doors in the MENA region for those startups. So this is the positioning that we are focusing on in that sense.
Absolutely. Understood. No, I think you covered all of it. Thank you for that awesome explanation. By the way, I think somebody was raising their hand. If you have a question, it'd be much easier to just type it in the chat, and I promise you I'll get to it. But I'm going to ask a couple of my own boring questions first. Sumaya, you mentioned opening doors, and that is something I love to hear. Again, coming from my former operator background, and I'm sure there's all kinds of VCs in the market, some that are very hands-on and others that are very hands-off. What would you say is your style of investing in that manner? Are you guys interested in providing a lot of market entry support, maybe regulatory support, even perhaps, entry into certain B2B enterprise business engagements, things like that?
Yeah, we're actually very hands-on. I'm gonna even push it further. One of the criteria that we have in our investment mandate is what value do we bring to the entrepreneur? are we are we a fit? Are we a suitable entrepreneur? You know, we love our job and we spend so much time working. We better make it fun, right? We better do something we love. I mean, between two entrepreneurs, one is really an area where we could bring a lot of value, open a lot of doors, and the other is as great, but we just will not. We know it, right? We should be honest. You don't know that much about the sector, and so definitely we will pick the one that we could empower. So that's a no-brainer. Now then, let me maybe dig also deeper in here and explain to the audience what kind of value we see that we want to provide. So
Please.
one of the challenges, Saif, in the MENA region is exit. It's a global challenge, but mainly in our region, we're also experiencing that in that sense. So we're 4 partners, but we also have a CFO with us, and we decided to have a CFO that has 15 years of experience M&A in the Middle East.
Beautiful.
He has 20 experience, but only in the Middle East. And why we took him with us on board as a member, because once we build our deal flow, he will be wearing the hat of the chief exit officer. What do I mean by that? I mean that me and you know, we kind of see this in our daily life and our experience. We see that how entrepreneurs build their solutions, amazing tech, but they forget about the importance of having an organized cap table, the importance of having everything organized in a way that if an acquirer comes, looks at Saif's startup and looks at Sumayya's startup, and if Saif's startup is already just acquire and Sumayya's startup has all those issues to fix in order to make the acquisition happen in maybe a year or a year and a half now, I'm not going to be an appealing product for the acquirer, right? You will be. And so that's something that it is important to do from the time you are growing the startup. While scaling the startup, you need to make sure you dress it easily for exit. Build the right, network with the potential interesting acquirers or whatever. We're speaking about M&A because we all know that that's the majority of what's happening in the MENA. But I'm not saying IPO doesn't need to happen, but it still needs to expertise in that sense.
Oh, of course.
So this is the kind of value we want to bring. So we have that chief exit officer kind of role that we're having on board. That's when we're going to build the portfolio. We want to build it while having the sponsor hands-on from day one with the team. So that's something important for us. Now then, part of our DNA is also to be open to sharing and to be close to the ecosystem that we will invest in. So, for example, an initiative that we launched last week, it was publicized. I'm happy to share the link with the audience if they're interested. Is Open Door VC. What is Open Door VC? Open Door VC is actually just us coming up with the name. We need to trademark it for sure. We're not there yet, but what we decided to do, because we see so many entrepreneurs and a lot of them, especially in Qatar, they are in their pre-seed seed and they're kind of a little bit lost on how to grow the company. They don't have experience before as entrepreneurs, especially first-time entrepreneurs. And sometimes you have one specific question. It's like, Saif, what is this specific term in this round that I don't understand? What is the standard in that sense? What happened in that sense? Or I have a specific issue with growing my company in this area. How do I do that? You guys saw so many startups growing. How do I do that? So it's a 20 minutes one-on-one with one of our partners where we jump on a call and we answer one specific question of any entrepreneur that wants to. So we announced it a week ago, and we had already a lot of traction. We're sharing. I believe by the end of this week, by Thursday, the link to for people just to book a time in the calendar of one of the partners, and we're giving one morning or one afternoon per month. We can do what we can do, right? So when we start somewhere. So that's our way, our way to say that we're not just a clubby VC hiding in our office with our checkbook. We really want to be part of, enabling innovation, enabling tech in the region. Even if we're not investing in the company, we want to be able to bring any certain value for any specific call. So this is our spirit in that sense. I mean, the last thing I would add, maybe, I don't know if you can stop me anytime, but the last thing I would add is experience, right? Experience is important. When you have an experienced team, I'm the most junior in experience, but in my GP, but the team, when they see a lot of downturns, for example, we saw 3 different downturns before. And so when you're going to be investing in a startup and another downturn is happening, we saw the pattern before. We know how to kind of advise in a certain way some specific
Absolutely.
sectors we saw before in that sense. So this is the
Mm.
kind of value I think we will bring to our portfolio. And definitely, yes, we're going to be super hands-on in the startups we deal with.
Well, that's great to hear. And I especially want to commend you on that Open Door VC initiative. That sounds super cool. And I think a lot of the people that are sending me questions here might want to book that slot to get sort of like tailored advice on that one particular topic,
Yeah.
because we can only really cover generic answers here. Awesome. So I'm going to move into my next question, which is about Qatar, right? Qatar as a whole. What does that ecosystem look like right now? Because we're not getting, perhaps a lot of us don't have access to the information on ground. And when I say ecosystem, I mean, what does it look like in terms of access to support organizations like incubators, accelerators? What's the access to talent like? How is the access to capital beyond Rasmal Ventures? And then also, please add, how do you see that local ecosystem evolving in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. Yeah, interesting question, actually. So we should say the things the way they are in a simple way, right? So Qatar is a nascent ecosystem, right? In the GCC today, it's maybe one of the latest ones, not to say the latest one, joining the game, right? There are advantages and there are challenges to that. The challenge is that a lot was missed out in a way,
Hmm.
and the opportunity is that there is everything to do, literally everything to do. Like anyone that has a spirit of a builder is a good time to be here and to be pioneering what's happening here,
Yeah.
right? Wealthy country that has a lot to offer, so it's about finding the sweet spot. So it's nascent in a way that it's actually, if you come 2 years ago, I arrived 2 years ago, if you come 2 years ago and now, you would feel a remarkable, noticeable difference.
Yeah.
I think, any country that decides to host big tech innovation events and is capable to do it in the right way, it is an acceleration of a momentum. And that's exactly what we experienced in Qatar when we have Web Summit Qatar happening like a few months ago. After Web Summit and before Web Summit, the quality of the deal flow that comes, the companies that are reaching out thinking of a potential soft landing because they discovered those opportunities, those facilitations that are not publicized that much. Qatar does many things, but I think if I can give feedback, and I consider myself as part of the ecosystem, publicizing publicizing is important also to do. I mean, it's good to do the work, but it's also good to let the world know more and more in a more structured way,
Yeah.
So it's nascent. Yes, there are incubators, accelerators, etc. A lot of them are led by Qatar Development Bank. I am a believer in the work simultaneously of private and governmental. So the government shows the
Yeah.
interest of all those incubations, but I am super excited to see many international brands of super experienced accelerators, incubators that have the know-how, that did it in so many countries before, and are in deep conversations with Qatar to be able to have something also up and running here. So a lot is happening now and being created and being. So if you're a builder, it's your time to be here now, because
Oh, that's
you're
awesome. So
participating.
the momentum is there.
The momentum is
Yeah.
there. So we see the momentum. So it's nascent, a lot to do, but the momentum is starting to be there. It's a good time to be here now. And now when it comes to ecosystems, to funding beyond Rasmal, I mean, we're the first homeborn. So we're a product that is homeborn here. Homeborn means we needed to be the first to be incorporated in QFCRA. We needed to be the first to register in QFC. So we did it. We took longer. Now we're happy. We're seeing more and more coming and taking less time, because it's just a learning curve, right? It's a learning curve. So they're not gonna spend time like they spent for us. So the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth
Exactly.
less and less, which is
You've done
very, very,
all of the hard work for everyone else to come in. You've paved that way,
which is great.
which
You
is
know why?
which is
Because
great.
if one hand doesn't clap, I need your hand and my hand together
Agreed.
to clap.
Agreed.
Right?
But
So
it's good that now we've also got Golden Gate coming in, which is a good international fund.
Exactly. I was about to say we're super happy to see that, Golden Gate with their Truckery
Yeah.
Gold is an international brand also coming and
Yeah.
came actually and are also being up and running with us here, and more will come. I mean, I'm sure you are aware also of the fund of funds. So Qatar Investment Authority announced a fund of
Of course.
funds of $1 billion, and so that's hopefully also gonna bring a lot of good talent. So short answer to your question, that was a long version of the question. The short answer is that it is nascent, it is
Yeah.
being built. So the builders are welcome to be here. There are a lot of facilitations that are happening, and we're seeing more and more quality deal flow from international companies wanting to soft land to Qatar. That's just a fact, and we're super excited about it. And when we decided to be in Qatar, we were not desperate to start somewhere. We had traction, we have track record, we could have just continued
No, of course.
etc. We decided to be here because there is this momentum happening, and you want to be part of something starting rather than something maturing, right?
No, of course. And you want to be that first mover. I understand that. Absolutely. I want to get to some of these audience questions before they start piling up, and then I start to lose my mind.
Let's do it.
So some of these I'm going to answer myself. Do you invest at pre-seed level? No, because I think the earliest that Sumaya mentioned was pre-series A. The
Correct.
gap
So
between pre-seed and pre-series A.
Said, that's an opportunity to just clarify. In our mandate, we're flexible. So we decided to be in Series A because we see a sweet spot. But now, if there is an exceptional founder with an exceptional innovative solution that we love so much, and we want to put a foot on the game early on because we are sure we want to be following up in Series A, Series B, well, we can do that. But that's not our focus.
Makes sense. Makes sense. What are your thoughts on an edtech startup? We are an edtech in Pakistan, scaling to go global. What do you think?
Well, EdTech is, you know that Qatar is #1 in the GCC when it comes to education. I think it's on the global scale, but don't quote me on it. Go to Google also, or ChatGPT. But Qatar is very strategic when it comes to education. Actually, one of the main successful accelerators is called WISE. It's part of Qatar Foundation, and it actually takes on boards, startups from globally. So they take it globally, they run it online, and then they invite them to come to Qatar. They give them funding and facilitate their growth and opening doors just through the network of all the big schools. All those big schools you could think of have a branch in Qatar, which is remarkable. I was personally so surprised when I arrived and I saw the quality of the education. So definitely look up WISE and look up Qatar. It's very strategic for this specific sector also.
But is Rasmal specifically interested in edtech?
We look at education, for sure. We look at education. It's I mean, like, we look at all sectors. We need to see what excites a VC, the opportunity, the market, remarkable entrepreneurs, and traction that needs to be scaled.
All right, we have a more specific question here about your strategic interest in climate and energy tech. Which is funny because we were just talking about this earlier. So how do you see these sectors evolving within the MENA region and globally over the next decade?
Okay. I think I mentioned it within the sectors that we want to look at closely: climate tech, energy tech, not only because it's a duty, especially for climate tech, but it's also a great opportunity. So first thing we did when we started, because we are interacting in the market for a while, right? And we're always building our deal flow even before launching. And I was so focused with one of my partners to go and see all the climate tech that we could find in the MENA region. I mean, I'm happy to take all your recommendation and the recommendation of the person that asked the question, but we still do not see yet a lot of, quality energy tech, climate tech in the MENA region. The best deal flow that we're looking at now in this sector is, fortunately or unfortunately, the international ones, especially the European ones that are wanting to expand in the region. And those are the kind of conversation we have. But of course, we want to look at this sector more. And if there are any interesting tech that is being created, we want to be aware of it even from day one, just to see the growth, try to facilitate. So, and one of our partners is actually was working before in an energy tech, an energy company, and in energy tech in general. So he's our go-to when it comes to due diligence in the sector. So we kind of have that competency also within the team. So super interesting sector for us. We want to find gems. I wish to find some also in the MENA region. I want to be connected to those brains.
No, of course. I hope this person is still around. And you also mentioned to me in private that Doha is a major hub for
Yeah,
energy
thank you
as a
for
as a
joining.
traditional sector as well. So that
Thank
presents
you.
an opportunity for these tech companies to build that nexus locally and build business locally.
100%. So Qatar is a small market, but for some sectors, thank you so much for reminding me of the safe.
Of course.
I was saying to you, small market, but could be very big for strategic sectors like energy tech. You know,
Yeah.
if you secure a specific energy player in Qatar with a plug-in solution that comes to solve a specific problem,
Yeah.
it could be remarkable on scaling on the ground. So for sure.
Absolutely. All right, we have another question, which is how do we connect with Rasmal after this call? What's the best way to connect, Sumaya?
Yeah. So so one of the things we are proud of that we answer anyone that reaches out through the website. And text me personally on LinkedIn if we don't. We really have a system where we care about answering, even to answer to say, I'm sorry, I'm overwhelmed, I can't look at it until next month. But we
Yeah.
answer. When you submit your pitch deck or your note on the website, we have our team. We have a team of analysts, and we look at everything that you share. Now then, my profile is public. I think my email is sumaya@rasmal.vc. Even if I don't get bandwidth to look at everything, I always forward it to the right person in my team to look at it, and LinkedIn, and then the website also works. I promise it does, because I'm personally making sure it does.
No, that's great. And that's a really good thing that you guys are working on. Could Sumaya please repeat the industries that Rasmal is interested in?
Sure. So the person that asked the question, I want you guys to keep in mind that we're agnostic. So we could look at anything. I personally, in
Yeah.
my personal level, in angel investing, that doesn't have to do with Rasmal. I did space tech. So we really do look at everything. But
Yeah.
what we want to bring closer to our deal flow, let's put it this way, we want to spend extra effort finding energy tech, climate tech, fintech, B2B SaaS, supply chain logistics. Those are the ones we want to look at more because we believe there are great markets, big pains that need to be solved. But we could look at anything else. We could look at and I'm not gonna say AI because AI is not a sector, and I know maybe this question
No, of
could
course.
comes many
Yeah.
times in some panels. So we assume that artificial intelligence will be across all sectors to help
Yeah.
automate, help optimize, to help many things be better in that sense. And definitely that's important for us to do. We assume it's there already.
100%. Another question about ticket size. Sumaya said 3 to 5 million. How much ARR is expected? Do you want to answer that? How much ARR is expected?
I'm happy to answer that, just to reassure the person that is asking that we cannot put a startup in a box. We just don't do it. It depends on the sector. It depends on the story of the company. It depends on so many things. So we don't have
Yeah.
a preset ARR that we recommend to see like ahead of time in that sense. We don't do it that way.
There's a question here about climate tech ventures that can be scaled to the region, and if Rasmal is interested. Sumaya actually answered that in great detail on how
Yeah.
hands-on they are about helping companies scale in general and in the region specifically. So that goes without saying for climate tech as well. What does Qatar's business environment have over UAE or Saudi? I was going to ask you this anyway, so let's have it.
Well, yeah, thank you. Well, listen, UAE is kind of, starting to mature. Saudi is booming like crazy for a few years and advancing so well, having so many VCs. I joke with colleagues there that I tell them, you almost have more seed VCs than investable companies. Like, calm down with valuation. So it's different markets. It's different. It's actually. Listen, I personally believe, I spend a lot of time in the US. I personally believe that every market is so different, and every market has its own learning curve. And it takes 20 years on average, historically, so many books written about that, for a country to kind of mature.
Yeah.
Its own ecosystem, right? And so now, if we compare in full transparency, Saudi is now a huge market, a big market, especially for B2C. There is so many things to do. UAE is where you get this, still to date, a lot more innovation, a lot more talent, tech talent interested in the lifestyle. So it's super vibrating at the same time. So those are the two markets. And then you have Qatar joining the game and offering a different way of doing things, trying to shape. This is why I said builders are invited now, trying to shape how they want to position themselves in the market, identifying the sectors where they can play a role that others don't have the means in that sense, or the speciality to do. Logistics is one of them. For example, we have the world largest airport, Hamad airport in Qatar. There are, for specific sectors, there are a lot of things that could be gained in Qatar that you won't find elsewhere. So it's nascent compared to there. It's still shaping itself. If you come in a sector that makes sense, you could gain so much, especially when you have the right, I don't want to say the right people, but the right intros. When you are in touch with a VC, or when you're in touch with an incubation, they can open so many doors. Now we have 2 VCs up and running, ourselves as a homegrown and as an international one, Golden Gate, that are actively looking at the ecosystem. So whether you like it or not, when you have VCs on board, it just helps push everything further with funding, with exchange of learning, with pushing everything to take shape in that sense. So it is starting to. If you came 2 years ago, I'll tell you, I'm not sure from a funding perspective, other than high net worth people that sometimes could not be the smartest money, but it still means, I'm not sure. Now we're having more and more global experts. Those are 2 announced, but so many in the line that are being processed as we speak. So there is a lot to do. So it depends on what you could get, and where are you coming from when it comes to the sector and your positioning in that sense. So different
Excellent.
markets, different things.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. There's a good question here about currency devaluation in Pakistan. And of course, this person is asking from the context of would you still invest? And it's a good question, because I mean, this is a conversation I've been having with a lot of people in the region about Egypt as well, where some funds are holding on deploying in Egypt for the same reason. So
Yeah.
so what are your thoughts on this?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, because we as I said, we look at Turkey, and for example, one of the fintechs that we were looking
Same
at
problem. Yeah.
in final stages, with one of the companies, and fintech, and then everything happening in Turkey, etc. And the beautiful thing is that when you have a strong story, when you have exceptional tech, and there are exceptional techs in Turkey, I can tell you, as soon
Yeah.
as you deeper, it is remarkable. I always tell them, you need the Turkish brain and the marketing of a US company together, you just rule the world. So and the tech is so remarkable that we couldn't just pause. We were like, you know what? It is remarkable. It has so much traction in the GCC. We could facilitate the growth in here, and
Yeah.
despite the currency and everything, the company is profitable. So, and 2
Wow.
years old. But when you have a scenario like that, you're like, I'm empowering this remarkable team to do this. So there are exceptions where we still could look at that, but then it makes perfect sense. I mean, for investors to hold, and the only case I would think of where we could still consider is, this is the case we also always look for, the having the operations or having the tech that is in-house back home in Egypt or in Turkey or in Pakistan or any other country, and then having your clients from abroad onboarding, using the product, using the tech, etc., where you actually get the best from both worlds, unfortunately, in what's challenging happening in one country, and when it's what's great happening in the other. And this is where we could see the ROI as investors. Other than that, I mean, when you're a VC, you're not developmental unless there is developmental support. When you're not developmental, you have also liability to your limited partners, to your LPs,
Of course.
to your investors. And so that's how we think of mitigating that risk. But when there is something exceptional, we still take the time to look at and invest in and empower to onboard other markets. That's something we are literally actually doing.
Agreed. I think that's solid. We have a question here again that I was going to ask you anyway, worded slightly differently, about what advantages would moving to Qatar provide to a young founder, and how does that compare against Oman, Saudi, etc. My question was more along the lines of ease of doing business, because
Yeah.
there are places in the region that are doing a lot of marketing, but that ease of doing business isn't really there. So So even if someone does want to come and let's say set up an opco or even a holdco, so from both angles, professional and personal, how
Yeah.
would you frame it?
While you're speaking, while you're asking the question, more and more options are coming. So I'm gonna be concrete. Call to actions, right? There is a program called Startup Qatar. Startup
Okay.
Qatar was launched during Web Summit Qatar. You can check it out. It has a specific website, everything, where you kind of, if you are, let's say, an MVP stage, early stage company, and you want to start your company, you apply and they give you funding to come and start your company in Qatar. This is the first
Oh,
program. The second program is more for scale-ups, and it's going to be just for hand-picked companies, not more than 10,
okay.
I believe, where they're more scaling up. They're more in their Series A, Series B, and want to come to Qatar, have an office, a regional office here, and they come and a bigger ticket to come and establish more operations, more R&D, or whatever they want to do in the region, and come to do it from here. So this is concrete program that is launching now. So check it out if you have questions. They have a whole system of answering questions, but I'm happy to connect you to the right people there. I know them very well. That's one program. Second thing that was announced today by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is that they announced up to 90% discount on the fees of creating a company in Qatar, which is a big news today. That was announced.
Wow.
Check out something called Invest Qatar. Invest Qatar, their mandate is to help and facilitate logistics of any startup that wants to come to Qatar. So they will subsidize many things, discounted rents, some funding sometimes when it comes to, for example, establishing R&D here or anything here. So check Invest Qatar. And there is also a fourth one that I just forgot about. I was thinking about it when you were asking the question, but it will come to my mind again. But a fourth institution where they do is they help incorporate, startups or companies or established companies or new companies in Qatar while actually accelerating the whole process. And they can be fully owned by people. They don't need 50% Qatari or none of that. It's just a smooth, soft way of just, running your company as if you're running it in any other place in the world. So those are concrete initiatives that were launched. There is also a visa for entrepreneur. I know it's still taking shape. I know it's still being tested, but there is a visa for entrepreneur to facilitate entrepreneurs to come, because the challenge before was that you need a sponsor.
Yeah.
When you are Qatar, like from a work perspective, like the GCC at a certain point they were like that, but then country by country things started to be facilitated. And this entrepreneur visa is the same, is that you're not gonna need a sponsor anymore. You can come with the status of entrepreneur and just come and do business here if that makes sense to you. And that's also a big facilitation. Now then, I'm not taking any commission to promote Qatar here. I care about entrepreneurs. I was an entrepreneur before.
Of course.
So I want to also say something that is also important. If you would compare tech talent, how easy it is to bring tech talent, obviously it's super easy way easier, I would say, to do it in Dubai or to do it in I mean, I speak about Dubai because I have the experience, but I'm sure also in Saudi there are more and more facilitations that we see. I mean, local talent also that is more and more techie and very well educated. So you're not gonna have that facilitation as easy in Qatar.
Yeah.
It's you need to it's gonna take longer. If you wanna just do it like this, Dubai is ready for that. For Qatar, you will need to put the expectations right. Now then, I'm saying this, but there is a company called Sununu. I don't know if you know about it. It's one.
Yeah, of course.
For
Example,
example,
there's a lot of Pakistani talent there.
The founder is super inspiring on many things, but the part that I'm interested in now, and I was speaking to him this morning about it, how he was able to attract talent globally to Qatar in his office. Literally, like he recruited from all over the place and brought them, and they're super happy. A very strong startup culture. And I'm like, I tell him, Hamad, when I see you, I stop. Like, I'm not gonna say anymore. It's hard to bring tech talent to Qatar. You just need to just promote it, show the know-how, and help people doing it. So No, we're saying it's a little bit harder in compared to neighbors, but at the same time, we're having real real cases of more and more startups capable of attracting tech talent here, you know. Yeah, you will need to do your homework, and I'm happy to help any startup that want to explore that path.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you for also giving an honest outlook. You know, people like to come on these things and give very rosy answers that no, everything's great and you'll have your registration done in 2 days.
Mm.
But that's often not the reality. So there's a question here about there's a couple of questions here about pitching and what you're responsive to and what you don't like. What are the red flags and things that scare you when reviewing pitch decks? What is the main criteria you consider while investing? Any tips to keep? So people are basically asking for tips here, so that they can email you with the perfect note.
Uh, Yeah. Okay. When it comes to jumping on meetings and having meetings with entrepreneurs, one thing that I noticed more and more entrepreneurs come like in a robotic way. They pitch to so many investors like,
Yeah,
"Blah, blah, 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 blah," and I'm like, stop. The business might change. It
yeah,
might pivot 1,000 times. I don't know. But you and your team, as the management team, will be the real investment. So calm down,
yeah,
chill. Let's have a conversation, like a human conversation. Like, just tell me
yeah.
more about you, what makes you do this, etc., etc. And that's a very important, at least for me, aspect that I care about having when I meet a founder. Now, then, when
Mm,
it comes to pitch deck, um, so many remarks and maybe if I had to summarize them quickly, it is very important to be concise while being clear and simple. For me,
mhm.
someone that cannot explain what they do in 1 or 2 sentences, they don't like,
Yeah,
I don't know, I understand what they're doing. So no, like paragraphs and things like that is important,
yeah,
but don't forget there is due diligence to come later and all. So in a pitch deck, you need to clearly explain what are you doing in a simple way. If you have benchmarks to explain, that's very important. You have no idea, you sometimes arrive to the fourth and fifth slide and you still don't know what the company is doing. For me, like, what is this about, right?
yeah,
And so the journey of entrepreneurs, the like why those entrepreneurs are doing, why this founding team is, I think I care about having more detail in the slide of the team. It's very
mhm.
important. Now it's very clear, you explain the problem,
Yeah,
has a big pain, a solution, how innovative it is, how different it is from your market. And please don't tell me you don't have competition. It's a big flag. It is important that there is something out there that try to do, even if they failed, at least show that you understood what made them fail
yeah,
and how you're doing it differently for them not to fail. Traction, like clearly what's the tech about, what's the product, and don't tell me it's like AI is everywhere. Just how are you doing it differently? Your secret sauce sometimes is how you build your customer support team if you're, for example, in big
yeah.
scale companies, right?
Agreed. Agreed.
And then after that, all of it together should be not more than 7 slides. The traction, the financials, what's me in the game, what I'm gonna get out of it. If you have investors, etc., it's good to show what you were able to achieve from traction on the business and traction on the investments, or if you didn't need investment and you were able to have clients on board, even better. And they're clearly the round, like what the round is gonna be about. No need to speak about all the valuation and all, especially if we don't have a lead yet. But my point is, at least I'm raising 5 to do this and this so that we understand where you're at from the
Yeah,
business. When you see
yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think those are 6 or 7 slides. That's it. Do not overwhelm more than that. And then every aspect you could dig deeper into. Just
yeah.
stay clear, stay precise, put your sources if you're speaking about big numbers of what trillion market and things like that are
Sam,
scary.
Sam. Yeah,
I think that's satisfying as a pitch deck where you could have a quick snapshot
yeah.
to follow on, right?
I agree. I agree completely. But I think you said it very well that even to be able to produce just a 7 slide pitch deck requires actually a more significant and an even deeper understanding of what you're building and of your market. Brevity is always the mark of a good writer or a good content creator. So difficult to do. What I have a question here. I have a question here similar to another one I was going to ask, but this is a great audience because we all think alike. So the question is about how do you see the GCC startup landscape over the next 3 to 5 years? Um, and I was going to ask you more of the same. So today we're doing a lot of comparison head to head, in the current moment, which is great and useful for our audience. But how is this going to evolve? So in 3 years from now, which ecosystem will emerge on top? Which one will be perhaps, the best in ease of doing business? Which one do you think will be the most vibrant ecosystem with the most diverse founders?
Yeah. I think Dubai did great by attracting, as I said, amazing still to date the most innovative let's say on solutions I see in the GCC. We're only speaking about the GCC, come
Yeah.
from Dubai. Saudi is a market that we can't ignore. It's just a huge market, big market. They're just getting started. A lot of willingness from the government, from the players, from the people, from the entrepreneurs, positive hunger to make things happen, which is remarkable and also you cannot ignore. Now then it has its challenges, sometimes in seed more funding than investable startups, as I said, but also Death Valley in the Series A, so we need more and more investors in later on, Series A, Series B. We have a challenge on exit, we know that, but I think all countries, I mean, at least Saudi, clearly publicizing it, but trying to work out solutions for exit, and that's very, very important. It's great to think of local solutions rather than always relying on other regions for those things. So there is, the willingness is there, and when there is willingness, when there is a will, there is a way.
Yeah.
And today the GCC has the will to have its own say when it comes to innovation and to tech. And that's a great start. It can only be reassuring, Those are stable economies compared to everything happening in the rest of the world. We look at Europe, we look at, many changes. It's a stable market. It's a market that is capable of consuming, that is aware of the challenges and putting together solutions and implementing them. So today we're seeing them walking the talk, which is something we were not seeing 10 years ago when it comes to tech and innovation. Right? So all those signals show that it is going to be positive and evolving. Now then, it is a learning curve.
Of course.
A lot of seed, and then the big players understood, they stopped a little bit, they calmed down, they understand how valuation works, etc. So it's a learning curve, and I'm very positive on how things will evolve. So I'll look at all markets, to be honest. Saudi for sure, Dubai for sure, Oman is doing things, Kuwait is doing things, Qatar are doing things. I'm sure we're gonna see gems out of every one of them in the next years. It's a matter of focus, of being hands-on to be able to capture the gems that will be leading those markets and will be leading different sectors of those markets. And it will be beautiful to see a story where it's, a regional story,
Agreed.
a regional story
Agreed.
where it is capturing the full market, and it is anchored and labeled by every part of the market for the good reasons.
No, nothing like it. That would be ideal for sure. And I think a lot of people point to Careem as somewhat of a regional story, perhaps. But we need more of those for sure. Companies that blend talent and from all of these markets. There's a great question here, Sumaya, about managing up. How should a founder manage upwards and keep their board happy, even if they miss a quarter or even if they underperform in a quarter?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Your board have a mission. When they are in your board, they come to contribute the fact that they will help to make sure the structure is there, the governance is there, the good practices are there, and the investors are not losing their money in shady business. So that's the purpose of having a board, and that giving you out of the box solutions based on experience when you're going through challenging times. Now then, this board at the end of the day are human beings, and human beings, even if we have different characters, we have different backgrounds, at the end of the day, when you're transparent and when you do your best, and that shows in everything you're doing, that you want this business to succeed and you're being transparent about it, you're not playing certain games that you think could help but they're not reassuring and they don't bring trust. This is when your board would be will just, when you don't have the trust, your board won't have your back, right?
Agreed.
And so I believe 100% on the power of building trust of every member of your board, even if they're different, if you don't appreciate all their opinions, but they're there for a reason. The more someone challenges you, the better it is to question yourself and potentially find something else to improve, right?
Yeah.
Now, and that being said about the board, but the board is not also the enemy, because sometimes you see that the board could suggest things that might not be very pleasant to hear for the founder. In some ways, sometimes we see that the founder grew the company until their Series B, which is wonderful and amazing. But at a certain point, when the company grows beyond, there is another skill set that is needed.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean like VCs are here to get rid of the founder when the company grows, but they need to also take to their attention the fact that you might need to complement your skill set. You might need to have another person that take care of things that you don't know, or you might need to step in another role and have someone else doing the role because the skill set needed is different. This is an example that I know frustrates many founders. This is why I'm bringing it up. Just
Yeah,
to
no,
say
you're
it's
right.
good to question yourselves, and it's very important that you make sure you pick your board members and you
Oh, yeah.
pick investors that are valuable investors, so that when they are on your board, they bring valuable input. They're not here to tell you, why are you using the ESOP, my money for employees? Because I heard that before. See, like smart money. Smart money. So I hope I answered the question, but if I didn't, please follow up.
You know, that one point just triggered me because okay. There's another question here, I think from a fellow investor. It seems like this person's an early stage investor because they're asking you how you gauge leadership and company culture, because we all know that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So how do you pick up on these like soft skills and these signals when meeting founders?
Super important. First, like I'm assuming all investors would do that at a certain point, but when you see entrepreneurs, etc., you want to go. It's not only meeting the founder and the CFO and the CTO and a couple of other people in the way. We personally, like, I did it many times in my previous lives, as they say, and we do it also now. You just go, knock the door. Hi, hello, how
Yeah,
are you?
yeah,
We're Saif from Orbit Startup. I'm Sumaya from Rasmel. Just passing by. We wanted to know about you guys and speak to the people that are doing the work,
yeah,
from the intern to the manager to the person frustrated because this to that, and this is the only way you would understand the culture. You see people happy and happy. You see many things that you won't see when you're just speaking to the management, and it is very important. And the smart founders always invite you to come to the office and show you
oh
the
yeah,
people. There is nothing about that. Humans are the most complicated, creatures I am aware of. I didn't meet
yeah,
something more complicated. My dog is very simple. But my point is, we're not going to judge you to think that you're making everyone happy. None of that. It's the willingness of the way, it's the leadership, it's the way you're building the culture. All those things, you cannot speak about them. You should see them, right?
yeah.
When someone left your company and still speaking highly about your company. One time we actually we went and contacted someone that left the company, and like, what do you think? And they're like,
Yeah.
love them. I love them. They're just a startup. They can't pay that much now, and I need the income.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love them. And that says a lot about the culture.
No, of course. I do that when I'm job hunting. I try and find people on LinkedIn that have left. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I got an offer. So what's the story? So no, I think that's really important. And I think we're also just about out of time. So I'm going to do a last call for questions, and then we'll just about close this out. There's one last question here that I have right now. How can we promote more angel investing in the entire MENAP Turkey region, where the risk tolerance is much lower than in developed markets?
Yeah, very good question, actually. And my husband is super passionate about this subject, actually. So he was part of launching Mediterranean Angel Investors. Check it out,
Ah,
Mediterranean Investors. And he was
okay.
also funding MD Ban. It's the Maghreb Diaspora Angel Investors. He's a board member of the European Business Angel Investors and many things. He did 3 startups before. He's not the subject today, but he's gonna happy to see that I spoke about him. But my point is, there are those clubs of people, and there are those clubs that are trying to vibrate the ecosystem. I just mentioned 2 to you, Mediterranean
Yeah.
investors and
I'm taking notes. Yeah.
Maghreb Diaspora Business Angels, MD Ban. So those are
Yeah.
initiatives. And now when he arrived in Qatar, his name is Marcel Dridge. When he arrived in Qatar, he was like, I want to build the GCC Angel Investing Club. There is Doha Tech Angels. There is one in
Yeah.
Dubai. There is one in Saudi. What's missing?
Yeah.
Let's just gather and do it together. Well, he's still working on it. Anyone that is interested in angel investing, he's your guy.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
can speak to us. But angels play a very important role. And I really believe on the importance of having clubs of angel investors. They're literally like a
Absolutely.
club where they're together because they learn from each other, because they know how the startup work. I might be
Yeah.
wealthy from real estate, but I don't understand how this company grow and why when I put $1 million, I don't get 50% of the company and all those things
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
actually learning from peers, from people
Yeah.
that did it. You can't understand all the sectors by yourself. You need people that are from different sectors, so helps with due diligence. So it's very important to focus on clubs. I totally agree that we need more and more angel investors. Some people like Marcel are trying to empower this, be part of this. Like-minded people need to get together and try to put to act on those things and make them concrete.
No, I agree. It's something I'm also hugely passionate about. We don't have any angels in Pakistan, or not nearly enough angels in Pakistan, especially.
Yeah.
So we need to do more on ground here as well. Last question was best email or method to reach Sumaya and Seth. Sumaya did give out her email. By the way, there's a lot of questions here I skipped. I would encourage you to go and watch the
I'm gonna
video
do
of the session.
something. I'm gonna do something
Yeah,
easy. I'm just gonna drop
you can
my
drop
email
it.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
there you go. Again, I can't drop. He said Muhammad is not in the. Oh, I'm emailing it to you. Okay. So to everyone,
Or you can just tell
here.
me, I'll type it. It's Sumaya. There
Yeah,
it
I
is.
just
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
there you go.
And again, I promise we check our website messages. There is a part contact, so don't worry.
Yeah.
You can always send it there, and you have your feedback.
Yeah, awesome. And anyone that would like to contact me for Orbit, LinkedIn is the best and easiest way to reach me. I check everything there. And I think we're gonna close it there, everyone. Thank you so much for all the awesome questions. Thank you to everyone who attended and made this a lively and engaging discussion. And of course, thank you so much to Sumaya. I think you were awesome. I actually learned a lot, and I actually made my own notes about Invest Qatar and all these schemes that I wasn't aware of. So it was enlightening for me as well, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Thank you so much. A great pleasure. Wonderful audience. Amazing host. Very humble, amazing host. And looking forward to engaging more and more with the Pakistani ecosystem. Having you guys, the entrepreneurs that are under our sweet spot that want to know more about us or share more about their tech, would love to look at that closely.
Yeah,
Take care,
inshallah.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.